in the form of a finished component. And then after this quality control and inspection, this part is fit for use. So this is the basic process flow for an additive manufactured product. This is similar to the previous thing what I mentioned, like it is a CAD based model you have, then the STL file. This STL file is sliced to form the layers, and this layer data only is fed into the 3D printer, which is also known as the tool path. And along with the input material, the 3D printing system, it prints the part, and then we do the finishing to realize the final part, and this can be put into use after undergoing all the qualification. So coming to the classification of additive manufacturing process, these are the main classifications. It is liquid based, solid based, and powder based. And in case of metal additive manufacturing, we are mainly concentrating on this powder based technologies or wire based technologies, which again have to undergo either melting or binding. So under melting, you have powder bed fusion and also directed energy deposition. And in binding, there's a technique called as binder jetting. Although this does not find widespread application in aerospace, I have just listed here for the sake of completion. And we will mainly concentrate on metal additive manufacturing, for which these are the two basic technologies. So what are the capabilities of additive manufacturing? Like we can create parts and structures that are normally impossible to build through conventional manufacturing techniques. And also the parts with intricate internal structures or complex shapes, these can be made through additive manufacturing without much effort. And a single additive manufacturing part, it can replace an entire multi-part assembly. In fact, you can integrate so many components and print them as a single part. And manufacturing parts on demand or lean manufacturing, like normal conventional setup, you may have to have an entire factory setup for making a single part as well. So that is not required in additive manufacturing. You only need to have an additive manufacturing machine, and you need to have the input material, input data in the form of a STL file. Then you can print as many parts in different shapes, sizes, numbers, etc. And also it facilitates the production of novel materials with unique properties. And it also is one of the important technologies for repair, because most of the times we find that there are parts which are no longer manufactured, especially in automotive sector or in aerospace sector, which are no longer manufactured. So that parts again we cannot make through the conventional route. So those things you can make through additive manufacturing route. And also it adds a functionality to be built on the existing of on the top of existing parts, which opens new opportunities for remanufacturing or repair of components. So coming to the benefits of additive manufacturing, we can say customization, complexity is not a limit, and it is a toolless or a jigless manufacturing technique. And it is most importantly a sustainable or environment friendly manufacturing technology. So what are the materials that can be 3D printed? Yes, any material you can think of can be 3D printed. That is plastics, polymers, metals, ceramics, paper, biomaterials, tissues such as tissues and organs, food. These are also now gaining wide popularity. But being the topic on metal additive manufacturing, we will concentrate mainly on metals here. Of course, these are the just examples of various sectors, the applications showing the applications of additive manufacturing. And coming to the product development cycle, yes, of course, we dwelled a little on that initial introduction slide. That is nothing but the 3D modeling. Then we have to prepare the data and do the manufacturing on the machine. And of course, post-processing techniques are involved to get the final part with desirable mechanical properties. And once we have the part, we have to also do the characterization, that is non-destructive evaluation. So there are various techniques such as X-ray radiography, computed tomography, fluorescent penetrant testing, which we normally use even for conventional manufacturing route products. And also we have the part has to undergo various testing and qualification. As a part of that, we have to do some destructive testing, that is chemical composition, microstructure, the tensile testing, fatigue and fracture toughness, and impact testing. Of course, when we talk about additive manufacturing, the orientation of the part also is important. Like I'll come to that in the further slides. So we carry out testing in normally 3 mutually perpendicular directions such as X, Y, and Z. In addition to that, it is also important to characterize along the diagonal in a particular plane or along the body diagonal of the component to evaluate the mechanical properties. So coming to the potential of additive manufacturing, this is one of the example which many speakers would have shown, or at least I think Professor Deepa had shown in her presentation. So this is nothing but it is 15 individual parts combined into a single part, and by doing this they could achieve a 30% weight savings and also a better performance. So this particular component is seen in all these LEAP engines, which is found in all these aircrafts which keep flying daily from Bangalore to Delhi or Delhi to Trivandrum. So almost all the aircrafts which are having the LEAP engines find this additive manufactured LEAP engine component in them. And another important application or arena of additive manufacturing is to go for DFAM to achieve a weight saving. So the part on this left side is a conventionally manufactured product wherein you can achieve all these flow channels by doing drilling and machining. But you see that there are many places where the material is really not required is there. So by doing a design for additive manufacturing, you can eliminate all those unwanted areas, the extra material, and then achieve this part. So this also can result in weight savings. So coming to the advantages of additive manufacturing, traditional process compared to the traditional process, additive manufacturing is cost effective when the part complexity is very high. You can see that when you are trying to make a complex part to conventional manufacturing, the cost is very high. Of course, additive manufacturing for initial few numbers, it is almost constant, but it is slightly higher compared to traditional manufacturing. So when we do more in numbers or when you go for higher complexity, additive manufacturing has its own advantages. So coming to metal additive manufacturing for aerospace, as we discussed earlier, it is mainly the powder bed fusion and directed energy deposition. In case of powder bed fusion, the variants are electron beam powder bed fusion technique or the technology. Then we have a laser sintering and also a laser melting technology. And in case of directed energy deposition, the heat is produced either by a laser beam or an electron beam or a plasma arc. So here again, the feedstock is either powder or wire. So using these feedstock and the heating source, we can make the 3D printed parts. So these are the two main variants. So when we compare this different metal additive manufacturing process, what we listed in the previous one, here it is a map showing how different techniques or technologies compare with respect to the complexity, the accuracy, what you can get in a part, the surface finish, and the overall cost, and of course the material utilization or the material wastage. Then what are the mechanical properties? Then about the maximum volume that is available and also the build rates. So here you can see that wire arc additive, its force in build rates and also the overall cost saving and material utilization and also mechanical properties. But it falls short in terms of complexity, accuracy, surface finish requirements. So when you are looking for these three things, it is laser powder bed fusion viscose over the other processes. So that way you have to take a call on which is the technique applicable depending on the part complexity, accuracy, surface finish you require. Or in case you are looking for cost savings, you can go for this wire arc additive or laser metal deposition. So that has to be a measurable call actually, which technique you want to apply. So I have shown the different techniques. So why different metal additive technologies for aerospace? So this particular slide explains. So when you have a high resolution or a complex geometry, it is wise to go for a powder bed fusion technique. So coming to this, this is the resolution and part complexity. So very high resolution and complex geometries, you can go for powder bed fusion. Whereas this axis is the part size. So when the part size is increasing, of course, this resolution and the complexity reduces, and you can go for either powder directed energy deposition or wire directed energy deposition. So these are a few examples of different parts size wise I have classified and under which technique they fall. So there are many machines available for this laser powder bed fusion for carrying out 3D printing in the country. Whereas only a few lab scale machines are available in powder DED and also in wire DED, maybe a lab or two to name. Maybe Professor Karnakaran would have shown in his lecture. So this slide again shows the comparison of various dimensional capabilities of various processes what we discussed. So this is the laser powder bed fusion. Like I mentioned, its force in this surface finish, the dimensional tolerances, critical dimensional tolerances and the positional tolerances achievable, complexity of shapes, and also what is the minimum size of the feature that can be 3D printed. And here again, the post processing is minimal. But when you go to this wire arc, the sizes which of the components that can be made through this technique are quite large. And also you can see the layer thicknesses are large, so the build rate is very high compared to the other techniques. And also the powder or the wire sizes are large compared to the other techniques. So when you're looking for high productivity for parts through additive, you can go for either wire arc or electron beam additive. And when you're looking for better dimensional tolerances or stringent and complex features, you can go for laser powder bed fusion. And of course, EBAM, it is again a powder bed fusion. EBM, it is again a powder bed fusion technique. But since it uses electron beam, the productivity is higher and the layer thickness also can be higher. So it is a faster and economical process compared to a laser powder bed fusion. And again, DED scores over EBM in terms of productivity. But the ideal technique would be to go for wire arc or electron beam additive. We will come into details of all these techniques in my further slides. So this is just a schematic of the laser powder bed fusion. I think already a few speakers would have talked about this, so I'll not dwell into this for much time. I'll just try to show a video which is self-explanatory. I hope you are able to see the video.
Sir, yes, sir. It's good.
Okay. So this was the recoater, and this is the laser beam treating the part. So this is the recoater blade. Yeah, so this is the recoater blade and this is the part that is being printed. So you can see that the table movement of this part being printed is downward and the recoater blade being, the bin in which the powder is carried and recoater is there is moved upward by a layer thickness, and the powder is transferred to this, and then the laser heats and or melts the part and forms the part. So this process is repeated until we build the whole part layer by layer. Yeah, coming to directed energy deposition, it is mainly used for manufacturing of large size parts, and also we can go for manufacture of multi materials. And also wherever you need some modification or repair of the parts, you can go for this directed energy deposition. That is called as repair and remodeling. And there are some bio applications wherein this is like a hip socket wherein you need a special coating. So directed energy deposition is one such technique which can be used. So this is showing, this slide shows the schematic of this directed energy deposition. So we have a powder feed through this and also a coaxial laser beam which melts this powder which is being fed through these channels, which by means of a carrier gas such as either argon or helium or even nitrogen in some cases. And once this laser beam interacts with this powder, it melts and deposits on the substrate. Substrate is nothing but on the plate on which you are trying to deposit the material. So in this technique, it is ensured that always this deposition happens parallel to the ground. So the table movement ensures that the part feature is oriented in such a way that when you are depositing, it is printed, and then the table movement takes care of the printing of the next layer. So build sizes as large as 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter, and part size as large as 1 ton can be printed through this. Of course, this requires very critical CNC controllers for achieving this RTCP motion for this print head. And the powers of laser used in such techniques are varying from 200 watt for lower power to 2 kilowatt for higher power lasers. And these are the typical components mainly from aerospace perspective which I have listed, which can be made through directed energy deposition technique. So here again, I have just a short video which shows this video of the directed energy deposition. So as I was mentioning, this is the coaxial nozzle with laser beam and powder being fed through this. And once this is fed, the powder melts and it gets deposited onto the substrate. So you can see this. This is the table movement which is trying to take care of the deposition, and always the print head is in such a way that it is perpendicular to the ground axis. So this process is repeated until that whole part is produced. So similarly, there's another technique called as electron beam additive, wherein an electron beam gun provides the required energy for melting the metallic feedstock. It is mainly in the form of a less expensive wire, because powders, the cost of production are much higher. So wire is a little less expensive input material. So because of that, the cost of the product can be brought down when you try to do through additive manufacturing. And also because this is using an electron beam as a heating source, it has to operate in high vacuum. So it is this technique is mainly suitable for either refractory or reactive alloys, such as titanium alloys, niobium alloys. And of course, as I mentioned, this is the fastest additive manufacturing techniques available currently. So these are the typical components, such as the dome of a propellant tank or a gas bottle. Then this is one typical grid fin for the screw escape systems used in case of human space programs for stabilization of the crew modules. And the typical components, as I mentioned, are propellant tanks, thrust chambers, gas bottles, grid fins, and materials are titanium and niobium alloys. And this particular component is having an envelope of around 325 mm thickness or height direction, and 1500 mm width, and 2-meter length. So parts as large as this can be made through additive manufacturing. In fact, I just have one slide on a case study on this. I'll come to that slightly later. Before that, we'll just see a video on this again. This is on electron beam additive.
Imagine from this to this in a fraction of the time and cost it used to take. With Siaki's exclusive electron beam additive manufacturing, or EBAM for short, metal 3D
So
printing
here
is
you
not
can see a wire
limited by
being
part
fed through
size,
this.
material, or
Electron beam
geometry.
heats the thing and
You
melts
can
it.
manufacture parts and structures that exceed 19 feet in length, 4 feet wide, 4 feet high, and 8 feet in diameter, made from virtually any
So
metal,
this is the entire
including
vacuum
Inconel
chamber
stainless
which they were
steel
showing.
and refractory alloys like titanium and tantalum. How does the EBAM process work? Starting with a 3D model from a CAD program, Siaki's fully articulated moving electron beam gun deposits metal from wire feedstock layer by layer until the part reaches near net shape and is ready for finish machining. Deposition rates can range from 7 to 20 pounds of metal per hour, which is significantly more efficient and cost-effective than selective laser sintering processes that utilize messy powders. In addition, a dual wire feed system can be utilized with the EBAM process to increase deposition efficiency, as well as to easily switch to different deposition materials. So whether you need to produce a functional prototype or a run of production parts, the possibilities are virtually endless. Our technology partners include the Department of Defense, U.S. Air Force, Boeing, DARPA, Penn State University's Applied Research Laboratory, and Lockheed Martin. Call the metal 3D printing experts at Siaki today and find out how EBAM, electron beam additive manufacturing, can save you significant time and money on the production of your critical metal parts.
So as I mentioned, like this is a near net shaped process because the surface finish is not very good. Like in case of a powder bed fusion, this like the product made through this route definitely requires some amount of machining to get the final surface finish requirements or the dimensional tolerances. And then there is another technique called as wire arc additive manufacturing, wherein it is nothing but a combined process of this MIG along with this laser or hot wire welding to get the 3D printed components. And here it is nothing but a robotic welding arm with a wire feeder, which can print the parts the size is limited by the reach of this robotic arm. So all weldable materials or large scale components can be printed through 3D printed through this wire art technique. So typical weldable materials such as aluminum alloys, titanium alloys, steels, etc. All the alloys which can be welded can be made through this route. So the typical components again are aluminum alloy propellant tanks, interstages, seamless rings. So these are the different techniques which I just thought I'll show as an overview. So this slide just compares the features of powder bed fusion and directed energy deposition. As I mentioned, powder bed fusion, it is nothing but to take care of small and complex structures, and it is capable of printing only a single material. And you need to have some supports wherever some overhang features are there. Whereas in case of directed energy deposition, always the printing is parallel to the ground, so it does not require any support. The material below it itself acts as a support, and it is a near net shaped product. And also you can do 3D printing of multi-materials and large scale components. So these are just salient differences between the two techniques. So when we call this additive manufacturing as complex, why it is complex? Because there are so many process parameters involved, such as laser power, the scan speed, powder flow rate, and the line spacing or the layer thickness of the powder which we are trying to deposit, and the trajectory in which we are trying to deposit, and the substrate temperature, the inert gas flow rate, and the post deposition treatments, what we try to achieve the final part, the heat treatment, hipping. So all these are the different parameters involved in case of a product made through this process. So that is why it is a we call it as a very complex process. And in case of the materials, the powder shape, chemistry, size, all these govern the properties what is achievable in the final component. And also it requires to be operated in inert gas, mostly argon or nitrogen. For steels we can make use of nitrogen, but whereas for titanium or any other reactive alloys we have to go for argon atmosphere. So as the processes are very complex, you need to like use some simulation software capabilities, so that you need not do experiments for optimizing all the parameters. So there are various simulation software available which are capable of studying how this laser power and speed they vary, and they can affect the part or the density of the part that can be produced. The powder characteristics can be simulated, and also the build path and hatching pattern, how these affect the distortion of the residual stresses. And in case of powder bed fusion, how the support or internal structures need to be built. All these software they can give suggestions to achieve a good part without any failure. And of course, these software simulate the total processes of right from 3D printing, the heat treatment, and the removal of the part from the substrate, and also removal of the support structure and hip or the post processing to predict the distortion, residual stresses, and the density what can be achieved. So there are various software which are capable of doing all these things. And again, these software make use of computational methods which can predict the shrinkage, the warpage in the component, the residual stresses. Because these are very high speed processes, there will be a lot of locked in thermal stresses which can lead to residual stresses remaining in the part, which can lead to failure of the component in service or during production itself. And also how these support structures will ensure that the residual stresses are minimum. All this software can suggest optimum support structure requirements, and also the influence of various components in the build space. Because if you populate the build space with so many components, again it can have a negative influence on the mechanical properties or the distortion that can be achieved in the part. So these are the classification of various kinds of defects that are possible in additive manufactured products. They can be classified into geometry and dimensions, the surface quality, the microstructure. It is mainly related to the anisotropy of the microstructure, which is leading to anisotropy in the mechanical properties. And also these are the various defects listed under each of these categories. I'll not go into much details, but mostly it is all this porosity and the bonding between the layers. These only govern the mechanical properties. Or if there are any cracks or pores in the component, they tend to lower the mechanical properties what is achievable in the component. So we need to qualify all these parts what we make through additive manufacturing. because reliability of the parts is one thing which governs the service of the component. So that needs to be established before you are trying to induct the part into the service. And also there are various standards available internationally in the form of ASTM or AMS standards. And also there are not much database or data available on various 3D printed components, because right now this most of these techniques are either confidential or they are like a monopoly by many players. So they don't try to disclose all the things what they do in these areas. Okay, so the challenge is in ensuring the quality of the component. So you have to carry out NDT, and also you have to find out the parameters which can result in reducing the porosity, or we have to choose the right processing window to achieve a very dense product, like with density higher than 99.6%. And another challenge is to establish this process control. We have to have a closed loop quality control system during printing itself to monitor whether any defects are occurring during the building, so that those can be healed in process itself. And also, of course, we know that wherever this human intervention is there, there is a possibility of human error. So you have to implement workflow software for all these additive manufacturing techniques. So coming to the standards, as I mentioned, there are various international standards, and since this area is a relatively new area, like the standards are being evolved now, and there is one ASTM F42 committee which is trying to evolve standards for this additive manufacturing area alone. And there are few available ASTM standards mainly for powders. To take care of the powders for powder metallurgy, these standards were existing earlier, and the same is being tried to be adopted for additive manufacturing. And of course, for mechanical properties of alloys, there are various ASTM and AMS standards, at least for the common alloys, what is being used currently in aerospace sector or in additive manufacturing arena for automobiles. And of course, for different alloys, there are various AMS standards which give the heat treatment cycles for the various alloys. And when you try to develop different alloys, the OEM or the machine maker, he provides the data sheets for different materials for which that machine has been tried and tested. And there is one specific standard from American Welding Society, that is AWS D20.1, which was released in 2019 specifically for additive manufactured components. And the same standard talks about the NDT acceptance criteria also for additive manufactured products. So these are the various standards listed here for different alloys. I'll not go into detail. And these are the different conditions or the heat treated conditions and the mechanical properties what is specified in all these standards. So we'll be coming into details of few of these alloys on which we have done some case studies. So coming to the qualification methodology employed for different additive manufactured components, we start this qualification right from the powder stage, because the input material is going to govern the quality of the input material, is going to govern the quality of the final product what we make out of it. So there, for this powder specification, there are different ASTM standards, as I mentioned, the chemical composition, shape, size, all these are mentioned in ASTM F3049. The flowability test for the powders, because mostly for this additive manufacturing techniques, spherical powders are ideal, and there's a flowability test in which you will check the flow of the powder, because effective flow of the powder only ensures that the parts are not having any porosity. And of course, to measure the apparent density, there's a standard ASTM 3049. And for sieving, there is one ASTM B214 standard available. So all these practices are carried as per these existing standards. And of course, since we are making use of the equipment, all the equipment that is used to manufacture this additive manufactured part also needs to undergo qualification. So for machine qualification, there's one AMS 7003 standard. For heat treatment furnace calibration, there's an existing standard of AMS 2750. And of course, all the measuring tools and all what you need to use to inspect the component need to be calibrated. And again, the vibration sieve setup and all is there in ASTM B214. And after you make the first part in a particular alloy for a particular application, that is called as the first article inspection stage. You need to ensure that the first part, whatever you are making, has come out as desired. So you need to inspect it and do a qualification on the first part. Then you can go for a batch production or a serial production of the same part through additive manufacturing. So for qualifying the first article, what we do is normally we try to print some 10 mm by 10 mm by 10 mm cubes in different parts in that powder bed. That is the four corners and in the center. And we try to evaluate the chemical composition, density, microstructure and hardness, and also measure the physical properties. So this is the first stage in the first article inspection. Once we are satisfied that the density, chemical composition is achieved, then we print the test coupons for carrying out the tensile testing. What the material or the parameters are capable of, we need to evaluate. So we have to carry out NDT on those coupons and ensure that those coupons printed using the above parameters are defect free. Then we carry out tensile testing and impact or fracture toughness wherever the application demands. And after we find that this stage is satisfactory and meeting all the requirements, we go to the printing of the hardware. And along with the hardware, again, we print some coupons. And we also carry out different inspections such as radiographic testing or computed tomography. We also have to do the dimensional inspection, the hardness check, and many places, many times for checking whether the components suit our application or not. It is ideal to do a functional test. That is, you try to take the part and put it in the actual system and try to see how it behaves. If it behaves similar to a rod product or a conventionally manufactured product, you can say that it has withstood the functional test and it is suitable for this application through this route. And of course, after the functional test also, again, we need to do the inspection and say that there is no appreciable damage which has happened to the part. Because it so happens that first time when you do a functional test, it may withstand. But subsequently, when repeated usage is there, it should not so happen that during the first use, there is some damage which has happened, but it goes undetected. So we do a post-functional test inspection also to ensure that there is no appreciable damage which has happened to the part. So once we are through to that stage, we go for this production stage qualification, where again we try to do 100% NDT and dimensional inspection on all the hardware. And of course, since sufficient data has been established in the first article and in the qualification stage, we try to reduce the sampling. And only two different orientations we try to print the samples and do the testing. And of course, functional testing, again, it is done randomly on one hardware per batch. And coming to the post-processing, the various techniques such as heat treatment, shot blasting, surface treatment, and the machining, all these are carried out to get the final part. So coming to the issues and challenges, as we mentioned, porosity and residual stresses are the main issues. And also, as I mentioned, these are non-equilibrium processes. So we tend to get non-equilibrium microstructures and texture. And also, the alloy composition and design is mostly suitable for additive manufacturing process because it is a layer by layer process. The alloy may be sometimes be tuned in terms of the chemistry to make it possible to make it through additive manufactured product. So as I mentioned, these are very high speed processes. So they tend to accumulate a lot of residual stresses because of the localized temperature gradients, and that is due to the fast moving heat source. And of course, the process, as we all know, it involves gas, solid, liquid interactions. So there are so many reactions happening in a split second. So all these are the technical challenges which you need to take care. And also there is one more thing which happens is directional solidification. Because it is similar to a welding process, there is bound to be directional solidification. We have to see how those solidification patterns affect the mechanical properties. So again, as I mentioned, qualification and reliability of the produced parts. And most of the times, inspection of all the parts produced through this technique, it is not possible. So we need to evolve some process control itself so as to avoid inspection of the final components. And coming to the post-processing, improving the surface finish on complex structures, because if it is a plate or a hemisphere, it is very easy to improve the surface finish. But if it is a complex structure, it is difficult to improve the surface finish because surface finish mostly governs the fatigue properties. What is there in the material would be defined by the surface finish. So we have to evolve various methods to refine the surfaces and achieve better surface finishes. And also the material properties, depending on the processing route, we have to consider what are the functional requirements Based on that, we have to choose the optimum process route, and also the production rate and robust process. Like we need to increase the production rates and also guarantee consistent production and material properties. We cannot compromise on any of these when we try to do a mass production. So how this materials made, I mean, how the components made through AM route, how they compare. So when we compare this property such as stiffness, of course, we know that Young's modulus is not dependent on any of this process. So Young's modulus will mostly be same as either in case of AM route or in case of conventional processing route. And strength in case of AM parts are mostly higher because of the fine grain nature, because the powders or the feedstock material what we take are very fine compared to the wrought products. So because of the fine grain structure what is possible in additive, we are able to get higher strength and higher hardness. And similarly, we know that strength and ductility don't go together. When strength increases, ductility drops. So additive manufacturing products are typically having slightly lower ductility compared to conventionally manufactured products. And of course, fatigue, as I mentioned, is a function of the surface roughness, because when you try to manufacture a component through additive manufacturing route alone and don't do any post processing, the surface is not as smooth compared to the finished machine component. So you need to develop some techniques to improve the surface roughness so as to improve the fatigue strength. And again, toughness, because these are having finer grains, the toughness sometimes is not as high as in case of conventional parts. But we see that with so much R&D being done in these areas, so daily the properties of these AM parts are being improved. Like many of these machine making or the service providers, they come up with different optimization of parameters or the post processing techniques to achieve better and better mechanical properties. So coming to the scope for R&D in metal additive manufacturing, there is tremendous scope in this powder making and characterization, because we know that powders are the input material for most of these additive, that is mostly the laser powder bed fusion or the electron beam powder bed fusion technique. So mostly spherical powders are used. And we know that there are many alloys. When we try to make these powders, there will be some loss of alloying elements. The loss of alloying elements can lead to different mechanical properties in the final part made through these powders. So during this powder making technique or the technology itself, we need to take care of those alloying losses, and we have to evolve a suitable powder making technology for getting the input powders. And of course, the chemical composition, as I mentioned, you have to take care of the alloying losses while powder making. And the second thing is the size distribution. And we normally look for a normal distribution of powders. So when we say for laser powder bed fusion, we look for powders ranging from 30 to say 60 microns. And in case of directed energy deposition, we look for powders ranging from anywhere from 40 to 150 to 200 microns. So when you go for directed energy deposition, we can go for higher size powders. And there again, during powder making, there is every chance that when you are melting and trying to make the powder by gas atomization, inert gas atomization or plasma rotary electrode process, there is every chance that this main powder particle can get attached to some fine particles known as satellite particles. So once these fine particles are attached to the main particle, the powder flow is affected. And when you are having an improper powder flow, when the powder is being spread using that recoater blade, what I had shown in the video, it does not spread properly. It can lead to porosity in that place because there is no optimum spread of the material available in that location. Similarly, there are various modeling and simulations for carrying out this process optimization using various softwares. Then, of course, you have to consider this machine and software capabilities also. Like for scanning these lasers, there are different scanning techniques. You can make use of the different softwares available to evolve a print strategy. And also we need to do NDT on most of these components and generate the standards, because the NDT standards what is available currently are mostly available only for the conventionally manufactured techniques. So you need to make make use of data and actual NDT data on the additive manufactured products and generate our own database. And of course, one particular area which is gaining popularity is the topology optimization. So by going for either generative design or lattice structures, we can reduce the weight of the components by maintaining the stiffness and the strength. So by doing all these things, we can achieve optimized design so that we can develop innovative, cost effective and schedule effective and lightweight additive manufactured components. So there is tremendous scope in all these areas in metal additive manufacturing. So coming to the laser powder bed fusion, as I mentioned, the physical properties of these alloys, the scan strategy, what we carry out governs the mechanical properties. Again, beam diameter, beam power, and the dimensions of the part, what we are trying to build, and what is the distortion that is possible. All these things we need to consider. And also the layer thickness, the particle size, the topology of the part, print and part orientation. This also, I think there would have been topics on topology optimization, maybe by previous speakers. So we know that there will be residual stresses at each stage, which we need to take care of during printing itself and also after the printing. So it is essential to carry out build simulation and arrive at best build orientation, so as to reduce the geometrical deviations and also the residual stresses. And it is also we have to optimize the supports and ensure that there is minimum sag and arrest of the collapse of the build. Normally what can happen if you don't provide optimum supports. And of course the distortion, as we discussed earlier, we need to compensate for the distortion what is possible. Normally what happens is based on the simulation software, it gives a distortion prediction model, and we try to generate a compensated STL file and then feed that compensated STL file to the printer so as to take care of the distortion. And after printing, there is no distortion. And cutting of the base plate after this post processing, the support removal, heat treatment, all these are very critical. And of course, manufacturing issues such as cracks, layer offsets or recoater contact, this can lead to build failures. And of course, there is a lot of debate on whether the parts made through 3D printing need to be hipped to achieve optimum density. But it is not always essential to carry out hot isostatic pressing to improve the density, because most of the times the sizes of defects what is there in additive manufactured components are much less than what is normally seen in conventionally manufactured parts. So we can live with those acceptable levels of defects. So coming to the geometric capabilities, as I mentioned, it is essential to provide supports in the part wherever such features are there. Wherever overhang is there, unless support is provided in this form, this part, if you are trying to build through 3D printing, it can collapse. So sometimes instead of adding additional supports, the part can be modified or redesigned to get a feature like this so that it doesn't require additional supports. Or wherever there is a circular hole, it can be redesigned to this shape so that there is no support required. Or if you need to have only this perfectly circular hole, you need to provide some supports. Or if you are trying to print a circular shape without any support, you tend to have some rough surface in this area, especially when you go towards the top of this hole. So it is essential to see that such features, if it is there in the part, how to take care of them by reorienting the part. And of course, the surface roughness also is dependent on whether the surface is up facing or whether the surface is down facing like this. Down facing parts, surfaces tend to have poor surface roughness compared to up skin surfaces. So this is called as a staircase effect. So you need to take care of all these features. So in case there are down facing surfaces, you need to generate some supports to take care of the surface roughness. And of course, these are some general design considerations. What is normally prescribed for carrying out laser powder bed fusion? See, when we are trying to build the part, we need to redistribute the heat, or the heat has to be dissipated at a very fast rate, because the process, as I mentioned, happen in a split of a second. So you need to provide optimum surface for the heat to be dissipated to the build plate. So this particular shape orientation is ideal compared to this, because here you are having only a point contact. and all the heat can get accumulated in this part and can lead to distortion. Similarly, when we try to design a model in the shape of this L and we try to print this final shape, because of the distortion and the dross formation, finally what you try to get this part, we end up printing such part. So here it is essential to provide some support structures so that these can be removed and then you can get this final part in this shape as desired. Again, we have to avoid some down facing surfaces, so it is ideal to reorient this part this way as shown in green. And also because these processes are very fast process, and wherever there are sharp corners, they tend to be acting as regions for stresses to be accumulated or the residual stresses to be built up. So you need to provide some radii to take care of these sharp corners in your design while doing the 3D printing of the part. So again, if there are some internal channels, such channel, it is ideal to build it at a 45-degree orientation rather than printing it vertically up, because this surface and all, there will be dross formation and it will not result in the desired shapes. So why additive manufacturing for aerospace? We have seen that additive manufacturing has tremendous potential for novel designs with complex features. Normally, a designer envisages some very complex shape or a feature which is very difficult to do through a conventional manufacturing process. So anything such a designer envisages, it is possible to do through 3D printing without any compromise. So it provides the design freedom, and you can try out various design iterations because you don't need to make a specific die or a tooling for a particular part, because this is a toolless or a die-less manufacturing technique. You can do carry out various design iterations and study all those iterations and finalize the design for your actual component. And also it can result in part count reduction, as I mentioned earlier, and controlling the microstructure mechanical properties by optimizing the parameters to suit the varying requirements. You can tailor the mechanical properties by carrying out various post-processing operations. And also there's a lot of material savings or cost savings because of this reduced material usage for this additive manufacturing. And it supports lean manufacturing, and parts can be printed on demand. You don't need to have a bulk production and stockpile the things. Whatever items are required, they can be ordered and printed on demand. Of course, DFAM or design for additive manufacturing and topology optimization, you can optimize the designs and lead to improved performance and functionality in the part. And also it is possible to develop functionally graded materials and multi-material or even metal matrix components through this technique. And also production of intermetallics, which is very difficult through conventional melting and forging routes. So here are the few examples of topology optimization: conformal cooling in case of engine nozzle divergent, and weight reduction. You can have a lattice structure, or this bracket, you can see all the areas where material is not required is removed. So it can lead to weight reduction. And we have seen that LEAP fuel engine, fuel nozzle for that engine. That was also optimized, and 15 parts have been combined and made into a single part. So this is one particular area. I think there was one exclusive topic covered in this area, so I'll not dwell much into it. So only thing is DFAM, it helps in reducing the overall weight, and also you can do a computational fluid dynamic simulations and achieve optimum fluid path, and thereby reduce the weight of the final components by carrying out a DFAM. So it is again like a iterative cycle when you are trying to do a topology optimization. So here is one example of a bracket in titanium made by ESA for this Sentinel-1 satellite. So initial design was this, wherein it was weighing some 1.6 kilograms, and after doing a topology optimization, they could achieve a weight savings of around 43%. So in case of this space-borne structures, every kilogram of weight saved can lead to a savings of $20,000, because that is the cost of carrying 1 kilogram of payload from the ground to the orbit. So when you are carrying a lesser weight into the orbit, it obviously leads to a lot of cost savings. So in case of aerospace applications, cost savings by carrying out weight savings, it can translate into huge cost savings, not only for manufacture of this part, but also in terms of the launch costs. So what is the world scenario in this metal additive manufacturing for space? Yes, we do have several applications wherein 3D printed components have been put into use. These are a few examples shown here. SpaceX has already done this Super Draco engine for this Merlin engine main oxidation valve, and this ESA propulsion module for this Ariane 6. Here you can see a lot of injector elements are there. This is very difficult to make through conventional manufacturing. That is, each part is made separately and it is braced to this base plate in case of conventional manufacturing. So in case of 3D printing route, you can make this as a single part. And again, relativity space, they have made propellant tanks through. You can see here two robotic wire arc additive robots are there, which have made this propellant tank. And our own space startup Skyroot, they have made this Dhawan 1 engine through additive manufacturing route. And these, of course, are conformal cooling channels and aerospike nozzle made by Fraunhofer. And again, as I mentioned, most of these upper stages of launch vehicles, you make use of titanium alloys. So many of these titanium alloys are very expensive to make through conventional manufacturing routes. So these are ideal components for carrying out manufacturing through 3D printing routes, so that there is tremendous material savings and also schedule advantage. Because normally, whatever dome is shown here, if you have to make this through a conventional route, you need to carry out melting, forging, closed die forging, machining, EB welding. So in this particular route, you can directly print the dome and print the other dome and then do EB welding and then use it as such. So it saves a lot of cycle time. And these are a few of our parts what we have made through laser powder bed fusion technique for different launch vehicle applications. So in VSSC also we have a long-term vision for implementing this metal additive manufacturing. So we made a modest beginning sometime in late 2019 and 20, and we entered into this powder bed fusion. Of course, we don't have any machines with us right now, but we make use of service providers in India and make different components. And as on date, at least some 50 to 60 components we have tried to get through these service providers, and all these components are in various stages of qualification currently. So right now we are focusing mainly on passive launch vehicle component, that is not the engine components and all. We are looking at only structural applications, and we are making use of service providers in India and printing components in all these alloys listed here, that is SS316L, titanium, Inconel, and also advanced aluminium alloy. And going forward, we will also be looking at carrying out electron beam additive manufacturing, directed energy deposition. We have recently placed an order for procuring a directed energy deposition machine and the commissioning here at VSSC for our R&D application and also development of few components. And also we plan to carry out simulation studies using various additive manufacturing software and see that we can redesign our parts suitable for additive manufacturing. So our R&D is mainly focused in all these areas, that is in the design for additive manufacturing, the materials for additive manufacturing, the process, that is there are different techniques. So we need to evolve the process and also the post-processing to take care of the residual stresses coming from all these processes. And of course, the qualification and induction of all these components so that these can be inducted into our flights. And of course, going forward, when we have all these machines with us, we will be able to carry out development of functionally graded materials and also develop new and futuristic alloys. And we'll be able to carry out printing of complex systems for our space applications. So these are few glimpses of few components what we have done, as I mentioned, through various service providers. And almost all these components we have carried out extensive characterization and evaluation, and all these are almost on the verge of induction into our programs. So these are only a glimpse of few components here I mentioned. And I'll just show some 3 to 4 different materials in which we try to develop some components. So this is an example of SS316L, which we try to make through laser powder bed fusion technique. So if you see the specification of this for the mechanical properties, it is only 205 MPa yield strength and 515 MPa ultimate tensile strength, 30% elongation and 40% reduction. So these are two types of brackets which we made through 3D printing route. And you can see here how the properties compare with conventional manufacturing route. So we got tremendous property advantage because of the fine grain microstructure what is possible in this technique. And we have carried out successful structural testing of these components and also established that the margins available are very high. And after carrying out detailed qualification as per this standard, we are ready to induct, ready to fly this component in our launch vehicle. This would fly in our latest launch vehicle, the small satellite launch vehicle. So these two types of brackets are used in this propulsion module. There are 4 numbers of each bracket used in this propulsion module, which you can see here. So they'll be flying in this launch vehicle, and this would be the first 3D printed component to fly in a launch vehicle. We have already flown parts in satellites, but not in launch vehicles, because launch vehicles are mostly structural members. In satellites, it is only like a functional members. So this is another very complex component which we tried to make through 3D printing route. So here you can see the computed tomographic images of this component. This is called as a strut for fuel injection. So you can see this is a cut up section of this. So all these channels what is there here are of 3 mm diameter, and there are interconnection between these channels with an opening of 0.8 mm diameter. You can, if you carefully observe, you can see that all these channels and all are very nicely formed in this 3D printed component. This is of a 3D printed component. We have taken a CT image. It is just like an X-ray of the component. So you can see here also in different orientations, we have taken the CT images, and we found that all these complex shapes could be made through this 3D printing technique. And it is nearly impossible to make this component through conventional technique, because this is in Inconel 718 and it poses a lot of challenges in terms of welding and also machining. So we could get this through 3D printing route. And here also we have seen properties are comparable or higher compared to this conventional route. The blue ones are the conventional route, and the red ones show the 3D printed mechanical properties. And here again, in case of titanium, we try to develop various components such as this body, end connector, brackets. And here also, if you see against the specified mechanical properties, we could get very high mechanical properties in the 3D printed components in different orientations. We have carried out testing in different orientations such as X, Y, Z, and 45-degree orientations. And we found that in all these orientations, mechanical properties are much higher than the minimum specified values. And here also we could see that there is a cost advantage of 20% compared to our conventional route. And mainly, as I mentioned, there is a tremendous schedule advantage. These products, if you want to make through conventional routes, the cycle time is something like 4 to 6 months. Whereas in 3D printing route, you can make this in a 2 to 4 days time period. So this is another example wherein we have done a bracket through advanced aluminium magnesium scandium alloy. This is called as SCALM alloy. And here the targeted properties were something like 350 MPa yield and 405 MPa UTS. And here again, you can see the properties are much higher than the minimum specified properties. So here also we have almost completed the characterization, and we are going to carry out a functional test shortly. So after that, we are sure this component can also be inducted into our flights. So this is the case study what we have done on that VTM bracket which I showed earlier, which is going to fly in our latest launch vehicle. So if you want to make this through conventional manufacturing route, you need to take a block of this size, so which weighs around 100 kilograms. And you can see that the final 3D printed bracket or the component weighs only 3.6 kilograms. So here the buy to fly ratio is something like 20, 24, 25. That is, you are buying 25 kilograms for every 1 kilogram of final component required. And also we have seen that the strength what is there in conventional route is only 250 MPa, and cycle time also we have tremendous advantage. Whereas when you go through 3D printing route, you can get higher properties and you can realize these components in very short duration. Yes, the cost, if you see, is slightly higher, but when we go into mass production, again this cost can be brought down. And again, if you carry out a DFAM, in fact this was a part which we tried to do through 3D printing without doing any DFAM. So if you do a DFAM on this part, we have carried out a DFAM and we find that this what is there in the conventional design of 3.6 kilograms can further be reduced to 2.4 kilograms. So here again the material wastage will be very less if you go through laser powder bed fusion with the DFAM. And of course properties anyway we have evaluated and achieved this required properties. And also once you reduce this weight of the component, the printing time also comes down. And we have seen that the cost also can be brought down comparable with the conventional route. And this is another case study on a crew escape system. This is a grid fin. If you want to make this component weighs only 120 kilograms. So for realizing this component, conventional route, we have carried out a forging of this titanium block of size 170 by 1540 by 2050 mm, which weighs around 2.5 tons. And you can see the final component is only 120 kilograms. Here again, almost 95% of the material is removed by machining. So if you are going for additive manufacturing route, we have seen that there are other brackets which are there as attachment to this, and all these brackets and also can be made integral. And even if you make this through 3D printing route with some stock, so that you can realize the near net shape component, it weighs only 240 kilograms. So you can see what is the material savings here. And the cycle time, yes, for this conventional route, the cycle time is 105 days, because for machining you need to do the stress relieving by leaving it naturally for a time period of say 10 days after carrying out some machining. So here the cycle time advantage also is there, and the part count reduction also we'll be able to do and print it as a single part. And assembly also is not required, it can be as a single part. And here we have done a preliminary cost savings analysis, and we found that we can get some 20% cost savings at least. So once we have this machine with us, still this cost can be brought down to maybe we can achieve 30 to 40% cost savings. And we already have planned to do this component through electron beam additive manufacturing through Shiaki USA, for which I had shown one video. So exploiting the full potential of AM for aerospace applications, these are some examples of what has been done by ESA and NASA. So like if you can compare the traditional and additive manufacturing route, here this is nothing but it is a very complex part, and you are trying to print this through wire arc additive. Here again you can see some robots, and you are able to get a very high cost savings here. And this again is that LEAP fuel engine nozzle, wherein they could integrate 15 components into a single part. And here again, this is a nozzle wherein you can have a lattice structure inside to reduce the weight and get some weight savings. And these are again lattice structures inside this, you can see, to get the weight savings. And this is a topology optimized part for which you can get good weight saving. And of course, by going for directed energy deposition or electron beam additive, you can go for multi-material printing. So bimetallic things like copper and stainless steel, or copper and super alloy, all these combinations can be done through this 3D printing routes. So coming to the challenges for aerospace sector, yes, because this is one new technology which has evolved. Like there is always bound to be a like organizational barrier, because we have seen that people in different organizations have worked for almost 20 to 30 years, and they are all tuned to conventional manufacturing. So suddenly when you want to shift to additive manufacturing, there's a cultural shift actually. So that organizational barrier exists. So like whoever have worked in conventional area will not be willing to replace them by additive manufacturing route. So that organizational cultural barrier exists. So that has to be removed so that you can induct more and more additive manufactured components into your applications. And of course, for inducting this additive manufacturing, you need to generate the knowledge and the database for this additive manufactured components. And of course, being a new technique, you have to educate the people working in that area, and you have to learn and do some hands-on studies so that you can gain more and more confidence. And when we go into production of this, because most of these techniques are nothing but involve a 3D model, which is nothing but what you say property of that particular organization who is designing that part. So cyber security and all comes into picture. So that needs to be taken care. Then of course, additive manufacturing, you cannot just like that replace all conventional things by additive manufacturing parts, because you need to show some cost savings. That is, you have to develop a business case. Unless you know show some cost savings, no management will be prepared to induct that component or allow you to do some R&D in that area. And of course, because most of these machines are now very limited, this service provider and that OEM, that partnership is also crucial. And there are certification challenges, because being a new area, there are lack of international standards available in this area. Yes, of course, there's a committee working on this, which is evolving some standards, but it will take some time before standards in all these areas are out and we can refer those standards for qualifying the parts. Another thing is, as I mentioned, data is mostly proprietary, or published data is very limited. So you need to establish your own data for the alloy which you are trying to make through 3D printing route, and through a particular technology. Like suppose you are doing titanium part through electron beam additive, you need to develop the part, and you need to establish your own mechanical property data on that printed part. Like you have to study the mechanical properties in as printed condition, or you have to study the mechanical properties in heat treated condition or in HIP condition. Then another problem in case of additive manufacturing is, normally what happens is, when this part you are trying to do through additive manufacturing route, it is tied to a particular process and a particular machine and a particular material. When you are trying to do the same part through a different machine or different process and in a different material, again you need to carry out the certification. Entire certification cycle has to be repeated. And of course, the last certification challenge is the time involved for certification, because most of these things you are trying to reinvent the wheel, I can say. There is a lot of time involved. You have to print the part, you have to do the mechanical property evaluation, you have to generate enough data. Most of the times during certification, people ask for statistically established data. So you need to have at least 30 samples data to say statistically that yes, this will be the minimum guaranteed mechanical properties. So that is another challenge in terms of certification. So coming to the future trends in additive manufacturing, of course, one is the feedstock diversification, that is powders and wires. You can see now, since this technology is relatively new, it is restricted to very limited alloys for which powders are available or wires are available. So going forward, you will have more and more alloys in which the powders and wires will be available. Like suppose what the problem we face is, there are many alloys specific to aerospace applications or very specific to ISRO applications which we try to use. So there are no powders or wires available. So whenever we interact with a service provider, he says either you provide the wire or the powder, then we'll make the part. Or other option is you provide the bar, we will try to develop the powder or draw down the wire and then try to do the part. So that is a time taking activity as of now. So as we go further in future, like there will be lot more and more materials available. Like every year we see some 3 or 4 alloys are added to the databases. So we can see that more and more alloys are evolving for making through additive manufacturing. Of course, other area is design for additive. We have to incorporate the design culture for designing components for additive straight away when we try to develop new products. Another thing is the custom product design. Of course, this finds mostly applications in medical or dentistry, not very relevant to aerospace, but again, because of the design changes, you can have custom product design even in aerospace. The next one is, of course, the post-processing and post-process automation, because there are almost all these additive manufacturing root components have to undergo post-processing. You need to automate those processes so as to achieve faster production cycles for development of those components. Another one is, again, this is from a supply chain point of view. We have to establish viable supply chains. Then another thing I mentioned is that cyber security. So the data security, interconnectivity of the machines, all these things will be improving as you go further and further with the advent of more computing power and more security, and also by implementing this Internet of Things connectivity. Then mainly these organizations have to invest in the parts and not in the technologies. So you have to try to make some investments in making parts through various techniques and then evaluate them so that you can gain more and more confidence. And of course, another thing, as I mentioned, is focus on education and training, because being a relatively new area, you need to educate all the people working in that particular sector on additive manufacturing, so that each one gains knowledge and develops more confidence for inducting the parts. Next one is corporate centers of excellence. This is one area in which the country is lacking currently. If you see in US, there is one thing called as America Makes, wherein all these additive manufacturing companies, they come under that umbrella and they discuss various ideas, challenges, and there is a lot of interaction going on. And of course, there are centers of excellence of additive manufacturing established by various like corporates in US or Europe. So now we are in that scenario at a juncture where within the country, this centers of excellence are going to find place in next 4 to 5 years time. We at ISRO have also taken initiative to establish a center of excellence by 2025. So similar exercises, I think L&T, BHEL, Reliance, they have made some modest beginning, and we hope to see more centers of excellence in future. Next one is the emergence of startup companies. So there is tremendous potential for the startup companies. Why I included this point is normally there will be many students attending such seminars. So they will be a little motivated or oriented towards starting some startups which can adopt this AM technology, because startups they have tremendous potential to take this AM journey rather than rather than very big established companies. It is very easy to go for additive manufacturing in a startup rather than in an established organization. So I think that's all from my side. So these are the conclusions. So we know that additive is a disruptive technology which is growing exponentially worldwide, and it is gaining more popularity in aerospace mainly because of the weight savings. And weight savings, it can translate into cost savings, because of the cost required to put the payload into an orbit is tremendous. Even with re-entry launch vehicles, the cost for putting a kilogram of payload into orbit is something like $5,000 per kilogram. Then AM products also find acceptable service properties in terms of various applications. And these properties, we know, as I mentioned, are improving, or they are better than the rod products. And we need to have reliable process monitoring software for AM processes, so that we can concentrate mainly on processes rather than the post-process qualifications. Next one is reliable inspection techniques. We need to evolve both for inspection and quality control of additive components. And the challenges, of course, we for this additive to gain more and more popularity, all the challenges what I mentioned need to be addressed. And future trends, of course, as I mentioned, tailoring of alloys, microstructure, and creation of AM material databases, and functionally graded materials and multi-materials. So this is going to be the future of additive. So thank you once again for a patient listening, and I thank our management for giving this opportunity to share my experiences with colleagues at ICFI Tech and the students. And I'm also thankful to my colleagues who have contributed a few slides from their activities, and again the audience for a patient listening. Yeah, so thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for your nice presentation, sir.
Yeah.
Any questions from the participants? Any questions from the participant side, please? You can unmute yourself and ask to the Dr. Anil Kumar sir. Any questions, please raise your questions. Any query? Any questions, please raise your question. Otherwise, you can chat in the chat box. Those who are unable to talk,
I hope I have not rushed through my presentation, because I think there was only a 1.5 hour.
No, sir. It's good, sir. It is very informative session, sir. Those who are working in the metal additive manufacturing, definitely it will be useful, sir. Especially.
Yes. Yeah. I try to share my experiences in whatever last 2 years I tried to learn, or my hands-on experience in this area.
Yeah, it's very good, sir. Actually, it is very good and informative session, sir.
Yeah.
So
anyway, in case there are no doubts now, also you can contact me in my email. I'll definitely try to reply to all the queries. I'll be happy to reply, in fact.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Charigaru.
Yeah, sir.
I have a question to Anil Kumar, sir.
Yeah. You can ask, sir.
Yeah, please, sir.
Sir, it is a very interesting and informative session, sir. I want to know where this 3D manufacturing is sitting when compared to the conventional manufacturing, in the sense that till now the conventional manufacturing is surviving only because of the material properties and the superior properties of the components when compared to the 3D manufacturing. So where do we whether it can take over the conventional manufacturing?
Yeah, actually, that is a question which many industries have to ask themselves. So the thing is, as you rightly mentioned, conventional manufacturing techniques are surviving because of the superior properties. So in conventional manufacturing techniques, the first one which comes to our mind is casting. So once there's a casting and a forging, we know that the properties in forging are superior compared to the casting. So when we try to see based on the mechanical properties achieved, at least in different alloys, what I showed in my presentation, what we have seen is the mechanical properties are definitely superior compared to the castings, and they are comparable or better than the wrought products. So only thing what needs to be addressed is the residual stresses in these AM components. That is one thing which is preventing people from inducting all the components into their applications. Yes. So once we have a thorough understanding of the residual stresses, and by doing suitable post-processing such as stress relieving heat treatment, or mechanical stress relieving, or sometimes we can go for hot isostatic pressing. So when we do have an understanding of all those things, and still we can get comparable properties with wrought products, definitely if there is a cost saving, any management will be keen on inducting the components through additive manufacturing. So it is like I mentioned, there should be a cultural shift. So people should look at additive manufacturing with open mind, so that you can induct all the components what you can make through additive manufacturing into your applications. Definitely it has tremendous scope, and being a new area, yes, there is some reluctance to implement straight away, but definitely going forward, yes, it has tremendous potential. And you will see, like we ourselves, maybe in 2019 we would have developed only 2 components. In 2020 around 20 components we have done, and this year so far around 60 components we have done. So it only increases exponentially, I can say. Anyone starting this, yes, they will see exponential growth.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Hope I could answer your question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Any questions?
thank you.
Any questions from the participant side? Please, you can unmute yourself and ask to the Anil Kumar sir.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah,
As you said it is a data in the list of the thing. The future work you asked us is the data that we can collect it.
Yeah.
What kind of data is required in this advanced area of additive manufacturing?
Yeah, by data, what I meant is, madam, I think it is mainly like you have to establish the mechanical properties in various heat treated conditions. Next important data what you need to establish is on the NDT aspects of it, non-destructive testing, because there are standards currently only for conventional techniques, and we know in case of additive manufacturing the defect sizes will be much smaller compared to conventional manufacturing techniques such as castings. So what happens is all the existing standards talk about defects which are much larger. Suppose you take a ultrasonic standard, it talks about defects such as 1.2 mm FBH or equivalent, or in case of radiography, it talks about 0.33 mm of the thickness. So those sizes are much larger. But in case of additive, we don't find such sizes, but still there is some amount of porosity in all the components. So we get typical densities such as 99.6 to 99.8 in case of additive manufactured components as compared to that of raw products. So there is definitely bound to be 0.2 to 0.4% of porosity. So how those pores affect the mechanical properties, like if those pores are oriented in one particular orientation, how it affects the functionality of your component. All those things are very important. It needs to be studied, and we need to generate a database of our own so as to have a proper understanding of this. Hope that was your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions from the participant side? I hope there is no question, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your presentation, and you are elaborated very detailedly about the metal additive manufacturing. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your accepting our invitation to deliver a talk
Thank
in
you
our
so much.
ability.
So I also deem it an honor to share my experiences with your community.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anil Kumar, sir, you can leave, sir, if you want.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanking you all. So please, all of you, turn on your video. We will take one photograph. Please, all of you, turn on your video, sir. Madam, can you take the photograph? Full one. Madam.
Sir, I have taken the two screens.
Okay.
Two of them I have not at all switched on them. But whatever, whoever I have switched on, I have taken their pictures.
Yeah, please, one minute. Yeah, 1 minute, madam. Please, I'm requesting to you all participants, please turn on your video. Then we will take your photograph. This is for our memory.
Syed sir, please remove your hand from the face. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Just a moment. I'm moving to one more screen.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So now we can
Yeah,
ready
madam.
for the
Please,
validatory
please keep
session.
in the PPT that one and share to us now. They can feel happy. That image. Otherwise, share your screen. I will give the co-host.
Chari sir, shall we start this valedictory?
Just 1 minute, 1 minute. Please, can you
Yeah.
share your screen?
My screen.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second.
Just show to the photograph to all the participants. Then that.
Okay, sir. 1 second.
Whatever the images you have taken, please share here. Scroll down, madam, scroll down. Okay. Please, I'm requesting you all, please try to turn on your video. Some people. Okay, madam, thank you. Okay, now we can. Madam, now try to capture the image. Some are open the videos. Okay, is it okay, madam?
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Ashok,
thank you.
there. Yeah.
Thank you to all the participants. Okay, because of you, we are conducting this great workshop, this great faculty development program. Okay, hand over to session our department coordinator, Dr. Suresh Kumar sir.
Dr. Suresh Kumar sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can you pin your screen so that it will be a bigger one, so that we can take the picture in the valedictory session?
Is it okay, madam, now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Little bit down the camera. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can.
Sir, please, this time is valedictory session. Okay, I'm handing to you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chari Garu, Dr. Madhavi.
Thank you, sir.
Last 5 days has been very enlightening sessions. I hope all the participants have gained a lot of knowledge and interest to pursue their work in this area. All the sessions are wonderful. All the speakers are have delivered wonderful talks. And there are so many technologies, developments in this 3D printing technology, which we can pursue in order to improve its standards and make the 3D printing technology competitive to the conventional manufacturing technology. As you recently heard about the last lecture, that there are still some challenges going on in 3D printing regarding the materials and properties, that the 3D printed parts have to compete with the conventional parts in several aspects. So in this area, a lot of research is going on, and I hope definitely this 3D printing technology will go to the next level in the coming future, and it will take over the conventional manufacturing technology. It is not that one particular technology is taking over the other technology. We are only trying to build the components with superior properties and with minimum cost and efforts. That is the idea. So always a technology which is better than the existing technology will be a useful technology for the society as a whole. So that is the idea. It is not to kill the existing technology, but in order to develop a much more better technology and useful technology. So that is the idea. I hope all the participants have gone through these wonderful sessions and they enjoyed it. And thanks to Dr. Charigaru and Dr. Madhavi for arranging such a wonderful FDP. And coming to our department is relatively new. The mechatronics department of ICFI Tech is only 2-year-old. But within this short span of time, we could conduct 3 FDPs, 1 offline and 2 online. And all the FDPs are very successful and there is a overwhelming response from the participants. So a lot of research is also we are going to do in the coming future, because I thank our management and all our director and dean, everyone, and the team of this wonderful workshop that we are able to establish the labs or whatever facilities that are required for pursuing the research in this area. Our management is kind enough to provide all the facilities, whatever we ask, because in order to explore into new frontiers. And we are also looking into collaborative works, because we have wonderful faculty. All the faculty members are PhD holders. Only 2 faculties are pursuing the research now, doing their PhD. So we have sufficient expertise in this area. And we are also looking into collaboration with different industries and also other institutes in order to pursue good research in this particular 3D printing. I finally thank all the participants and the management for giving this wonderful opportunity. And I hope all the people have enjoyed this wonderful FDP. And we are soon going to come up with another FDP in the advanced manufacturing. That will also create a lot of interest and throw for much of a light in this manufacturing sector. Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your feedback to us. Any participant? Okay.
There is a feedback form posted in the chat box.
No. Okay, just I will do 1 minute.
It's posted. And if you are having the participant certificate, you share with them your screen.
Okay, and okay, I will post now. Okay, I'm requesting 2 participants. Okay, please, okay, share your experience in this 5 days faculty development talent program. Okay, that is boost us. If any drawbacks are there, if any advantages are there, you can share us. Okay, you can share to us.
Yeah, this is Dr. Jayaprakash from NRTI. So am I audible to you all, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, this was like very informative sessions. These 5 days, whatever we have gone through are very informative sessions. Especially Professor Karunakaran gave us very good thoughts to all of us, like in which direction we have to proceed further. So nothing to say about the feedback. Feedback, like I can say, excellent to in all categories, like managing and then the resource persons, facilities and all, everything is looking fine. Thank you for selecting us for the FDP. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jayaprakash. It's a very wonderful feedback.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And this will encourage our team to come up with many other FDPs in future like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So personally, I know most of the resource persons also. Professor Karunakaran was my supervisor's supervisor. I'm from IIT Hyderabad. Dr. Surya's student, and Dr. Surya's student was Professor Karunakaran. And I know Rakesh very well. We procured roughly close to 5 lakh rupee equipment from Mr. Rakesh. And, yeah. So I know most of the resource persons in person also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks your valuable feedback to us, sir. Those who are interested to share your experience in this 5-day faculty development, please, you can unmute yourself and you can talk. You can share your experience in this 5 days faculty development program.
Chari sir, I would like Christopher sir to say a few words. One of our participants actively participating in each and every session.
Yeah. Please, I'm inviting to Christopher sir, Stephen sir, Christopher Stephen sir.
Yes, sir. Very good afternoon to one and all. Can you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
So I am from Welltech University, Chennai. So my PhD specialization was related to turbo machine centrifugal pump. I did my PhD from IIT Madras. So this was a innovative session, and then I came to know about this FDP through my guide. So actually, he was retired. Through him, I came to know, and all the sessions were more informative. And then we got more experts from all the sectors. And then I learned each and everything from the session. And then many motivational talks, I can able to get the words from the each session. And I need to thank all the coordinators for the well coordination. And then you have started all the session on particular time. And then you have finished everything on particular with the proper feedback. Everything is on time. So I need to thank each and everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Your valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Sirisha, anybody else?
Madam, just hold on, madam. One participant is speaking. Yeah, please. You can speak.
Yes, one and all, good afternoon, everyone, for this wonderful workshop, FDP. First of all, I congratulations Dr. Chari, sir. From the beginning onwards, from first day to this, we are going to finishing our validatory functions. Chari sir has come up with new topics. Well planned timetable means I observed that from the Usmania universities we see that the virtual lab organization we have taken that from SLM machine to various first time I've seen that these additive manufacturing machines. Anyhow, we are not sitting in the physically, but in the virtual direction also we see how we are going to conduct this FDP is really very nice, very fantastic. You are very well planned, and we did not see that one thing we can say that one thing is missing. But all the means from all the corner you are arranged very well manner, sir. Congratulations for the entire team of this ICFI management, and especially thanks to the Chari sir. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for your support, sir.
Any of our student participants want to say something regarding this one? Teja Kalluri or Avantika, Suraj? Okay. Shekhar sir? Chari sir, can you share your participant certification to the participants so that we can?
Yeah, I will inform, announce you. Just
yeah. Okay,
so, anyone, you can share your feedback or anything, whatever you call. Okay, you can share to us. How you spend these 5 days during this faculty development program. You can share your ideas, or you can give your valuable feedback to us. We can improve ourselves in the next FDP. Okay, thank you. I think. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm very wholeheartedly giving thanks for all the participants. Because of you, we are conducted this nice faculty development program from the day 1 onwards. Okay, from the day 2 now we are almost today festival, but nearly minimum 30 participants are attended in this faculty development program. So I'm very heartfully thanking you too. Okay, thanks, thank you. This is my side. Madam, can you speak anything?
Sir, yeah. I just want to add 2 to 3 lines for whatever our coordinators are explained. on a brief 5-day session of the FDP program. So the first day it was like an enlightenment for us by seeing the man robot by Karnakaran sir. It was very happy after seeing that manned drone, and the welcome is very happy. After that, we moved on to the advancements or industrial adoption. So we don't know how many industries are in the frontier to take up the 3D printing, how the competition is there around the world, and how India is moving forward in this one by Dr. Guru Prasad sir. As well, I can say our Professor Anil Ravi Kumar from NIT Warangal, the design strategy he explained, as well as the questionnaire session and the elaborative explanation by the keynote speakers. Sriram Venkatesh sir from Osmania University with his busy hours also, as well as U. Chandrasekhar sir, Wipro 3D, and our coordinator itself, FDP coordinator, Dr. Manmadachari, for explaining very briefly the biomedical applications, the dental part, and the materials that are used in the ecosystem by Rakesh Kumar sir, as well as the Siva Ramakrishna sir in the morning after this even of the festive session also, he came, he participated, and our Women Engineer Award, Deepa Srinivasan, she enlightened us in such a way, and she gave a future scope of the additive manufacturing, and she cleared all the queries in the question answer session, and the path she followed from the basic starting of the additive manufacturing till to the advancement in the aerospace of different divisions, the advancements from the military operations to that of the normal aerospace applications also. She explained thoroughly in the morning session, and later Anil Kumar sir elaborated. I can say that apart from the from South Korea, nor Ayman Sukinder. So all the keynote speakers represented in such a beautiful way that those who are not into the area of the additive manufacturing also, even our early stage students, second year students also participated and expressed their happiness that because they are young engineers and want to do something. Ma'am, we want to do some project that kind of awareness was presented by the keynote speakers. Apart from thanking all the keynote speakers, I would like to thank all the participants, as Dr. Chari sir explained his heartfelt thanks. I would like to say once again, thanks for all the participants, like Christopher sir, every day, every session, he used to ask continuously the questions, and Sirisha, one of the participants, like everyone participated very well, and that's all from my side, and we are very happy that our management, our coordinator, our colleagues, as well as the participants made this event successful. And above all, I can say a heartfelt thanks to Dr. Manmadachari. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Okay, so many members they are texting in the message. Okay, thank you. Thanking you to all. Damasri, can you talk? P. Damasri. Srisendu Maha.
Ashok Devangan sir, are you there?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, I am there. I am here, sir.
Yeah.
I am Srishendu Mahata from Kalyani Government Engineering College, West Bengal.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
It was a wonderful experience. In fact, 3D printing is a comparatively new concept for me that I have gathered over these 5 days wonderfully. Particularly the demo sessions were excellent. In fact, staying here, I felt like being in the lab. Okay, so that was wonderful, and I would once again request you, which I have already written in the chat box, to share the demo sessions, if possible, the recorded versions through email.
Yeah, definitely,
Thank you so much.
definitely, sir. Okay, we are. I will announce you. I will announce you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chari
So,
sir,
yeah.
the session, or you want to say something?
Yeah, now okay. Okay, from our side, okay, we are pending two works. One is we are going to share the videos. Second is the certificate and PPTs. Okay, I will request to the speakers to share the certificates. If they are sharing to I'm requesting to speakers to share the PPTs. If they are sharing the PPTs to me, I will share it to all the participants. First one. Second one, these videos we are going to upload in our YouTube channel, in our ICFITech YouTube channel. That link I will share to your email addresses within 2 days. Next Monday, I will share the participant certificate to your email address. Okay, these three works are pending from my side. Okay, I will finish by Monday or Tuesday. Thanking you, sir. Thanking you. Yes, I will post the feedback.